Hello and welcome to Clusters. We're getting towards the end of the book of Acts now. This week we're in chapter 26 and Paul is still in chains. Now you might remember that last time Paul had appealed to the emperor in Rome rather than travel to Jerusalem to face trial before the Jewish religious council, the Sanhedrin. And it's a good job too, because they had been planning to ambush him and kill him before he arrived. However, the new governor of Judea, Agrippa Festus, is somewhat thrown by his appeal, as he has nothing to write in his report to the emperor about what Paul's accused of that's so serious. And so Festus introduces Paul to King Herod Agrippa II, a much more experienced local ruler, to get some advice on what he should write. Paul is then brought up once again from the cells to stand before this illustrious panel. Paul begins by showing great respect to his inquisitors, especially to Agrippa, who he's not met before. He then provides context to his life by describing his childhood and religious background, and I think it's interesting to see him describe the Pharisees as the strictest sect. He's making a point about his personal devotion to the toughest reading of the law. Indeed, he was so passionate that it led him to arrest and vote to kill men and women who believed as he now did. What could possibly change such a man as this? Well, he goes on to describe for Festus and Agrippa the story of his miraculous conversion to being a follower of Christ. Now, I've heard this story 3 times in the book of Acts so far. Once from Luke in chapter 9, though he probably got this from Paul himself. Once from Paul speaking to the crowd after his recent arrest in chapter 22. And now here in chapter 26 from Paul again, though in decidedly less volatile circumstances. Why do you think we keep hearing Paul's conversion story? What purpose does it serve Luke and Paul to retell it? Paul does seem to include a lot more of what Jesus said to him in this version, but he's probably combining what Jesus said in the vision on the road to Damascus and with what the Lord said to him later through Ananias. Paul then explains what he has done as a result of hearing from God, going to the Gentiles in obedience to Jesus, preaching repentance and turning to God, and teaching that they should demonstrate their repentance through their deeds. I wonder how we show our repentance through what we do. However, when Paul talks about Jesus being the first to rise from the dead, the Roman Festus explodes at him, believing him to be quite mad. Paul counters by declaring what he says to be both true and reasonable. He even adds a challenge for King Agrippa, though Agrippa turns him down. Once the dignitaries have left, they discuss Paul's case privately. They believe Paul to be innocent and would release him had he not appealed to the emperor. But God has other plans for Paul, to preach the gospel in the heart of the Roman Empire. Next time, Paul sets off on his journey to Rome and has an eventful voyage that ends in, well, Malta. But until then, have a great cluster.